Welcome to the Rewilded Human podcast, where Dr. Lucille and Lynn will tackle your most difficult and intimate questions with candor, tough love, and a little dash of humor. In today's episode,
understand that it's healthier for a child to be given a little bit of leeway to make their own mistakes, to make their own choices, so that they can learn what's right for them and what's not.
And they will do this with alcohol, with drugs, with legalizing drugs. They will do this with the pharmaceutical drugs that they give to children already, right? How many children are already medicated? They will do this with coffee, with junk food. They destroy your brain to the point where you literally can't think for yourself.
Go to the next level of your development, where you're going to that level of tuning into yourself, following your intuition, developing a stronger connection with your intuition.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 43, where Dr. Lucille and I will be discussing something very interesting that came up recently. And we're going to talk about how to be your own guru. So basically, how to avoid the fake prophets, how to stop waiting for a savior. No one's coming to save you. Spoiler alert, it's not going to happen. You are in charge of your own life. And in this episode, we're going to pick this apart as much as we can and share our endless wisdom with you guys and help you find your way back to your true self, where you can trust your own intuition and your own beliefs and not wait for someone else to save you. Just recently, I heard that we are actually wired, our DNA is wired for a savior, for us to be looking to worship someone or to worship something, either a god or an entity or a politician. So it's in our DNA. We are wired to worship. And it's only a very small percentage of us who don't have this coding, which I think is really, really interesting. So I think it's almost like beyond. It's not that we can't do anything about it. I'm sure we can do something about it, and that's what we're going to discuss in this. But we are hardwired pretty much to have a leader, to have someone to worship, follow that leader blindly, be it a politician or a religious guru or anyone else. And whatever they tell you, that's the gospel, and you follow it. And anyone that doesn't follow it, you attack them or you murder them. That's why we go to war, because my God is better than your God. Yeah. How do we put an end to this?
Well, that's a million-dollar question. And I would also say that even if we have genetic coding for something, as you know, Lynn, we are not hardwired in our genes necessarily. No. And that often the beauty of being a human is that we can change our own gene expressions simply by having experiences of life and learning to do it differently. Learning different points of view. So that can impact on our genetics as well, because I know certainly that there are many people who maybe start out life as sheep, I'm sorry to say that, where they're constantly giving up their power to other people to do their thinking for them, to make decisions for them. And then after a while, when they are betrayed or they're somehow hurt by an abuse of power by their savior or the people they're following, it's then that they wake up. Mm-hmm. And some of the people who wake up, they really cannot.
They wake up hard. Yeah.
They wake up hard, and they are never, ever going to go back to the way they were. Okay. Yeah. So I think there's hope for a lot of people who are in this situation. And that's where they have the deprogrammers. It used to be much more common. Parents would hire deprogrammers to go and get their kids out of cults. And these deprogrammers had a, reasonably effective way of doing that. And often, when they did have a success, the kids would get back on the straight and narrow, and they would never look back. They would never be vulnerable again to the cult.
So there is hope. Lucille, why do you think people need a savior? Why do you think they are seeking gurus or saviors?
Well, I think there are probably a number of different reasons, but number one is we are not taught to value our own wisdom. Like even from day one, we are taught that we have to conform to somebody else's expectations. Somebody else holds the standards. Somebody else holds the hoop this high, and you're supposed to just jump through it,
Yeah.
right?
Schools,
And
like in
yeah,
schools and everything. Yeah.
in schools, in church, in our own families, there are standards that children have to meet. And, often parents don't even understand that it's healthier for a child to be given a little bit of leeway to make their own mistakes,
Yeah.
to make their own choices, so that they can learn what's right for them and what's not. And I'm not talking about total self-indulgence where you allow the child to just do whatever they want, eat whenever they want, go wherever they want, sleep whenever they want, blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when it's appropriate, age appropriate, you start supporting your child to making decisions for themselves, giving them the message that they have the power to determine their own lives, right? You're as soon as they're ready for the next lesson, your job as a parent is to ensure that they can lead an independent life. But too much of our lives are about conforming to expectations, about fear of being turfed out of the tribe, of not fitting in, of being alone, all sorts of things. It's so many fears imposed on us. There's standards we have to meet, but then there are fears about what happens if we don't meet the standards, if we be ourselves.
Yeah.
So, I think this sets us up to look for something outside of ourselves, because automatically, you don't have it in you. You don't have wisdom, you don't have courage, nothing. Your survival depends on you attaching to somebody who's more powerful, who can tell you what to do.
Yeah. And historically speaking, our survival always was dependent on us being part of the tribe and being accepted in the tribe. So it was always conformity and having to fit in. So there were always leaders, and we followed that leader, and we wanted to be part of the tribe, because if they threw us out of the tribe, we wouldn't be able to fend for ourselves. So I think because of that, we have this herd mentality, and whatever the other 90% is doing, we feel like we need to do. And I think the
Yes.
last 4 years taught us that some of us are not like that. We will not conform.
Right.
Even if we go and fight alone, we will be off fighting. But it was also really disgusting for me to see, without actually having to, it's very difficult. So we don't want to get, penalized or lose our platform. But, it was very hard to see in the past 4 years that there were all these, the politicians, the religious leaders, even the Pope, the Jesus would want you to get the jab, right? And things like that. And how many people, or Fauci or all the others, right? How many people were influenced to make the wrong decision because they were influenced and they were following these scientists and leaders and politicians and governments and religious gurus, because they were also guiding them in the same direction that everybody was doing the same thing. So, when you're following something blindly or someone blindly, it could be to your detriment as well, as we have seen happen to a lot of people, which is super sad to me. We discussed the Dalai Lama before as well, like that incident that happened with the boy, him kissing the boy and everything. And I mean, that was such a huge shock to me, because without being religious, I always really respected him. I shared his quotes. I really looked up to him. And when I shared that story about the kiss, everybody came to his defense, and they were attacking me, and they were saying, no, that's okay, it's part of his culture and his
I
dimension.
remember that.
Yeah, you remember that. And people were making excuses for him to the point where even that was blatant child abuse, that even that was okay, because he's my guru and he can do whatever he wants. And I see this with politicians. If it's my politician, like my prime minister or my whatever, president is telling me, then anything he does is okay. You know, if he wants to take all the kids and send them off to war, bring back the draft, jab the whole country, it's okay because it's my president. I support him. Do you see people doing that? So it's like the whole world has gone crazy. And we're at such a pivotal point in our history right now where you need to start thinking for yourself. And I didn't want this episode to become about conspiracy theories, but my mind, you know, goes there all the time. But it's like, wake the F up, people. Like, don't you see
Yes.
in the last 4 years that nobody was on our side? Even the people that we thought were on our side were pushing another agenda, which was still to our detriment.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, you bring up the Dalai Lama, you know, ironically, many years ago, I read something from him about how do you pick your guru?
Ah,
And he said, you need to test the guru for at least 15 years. You need to observe them for 15 years before you fully commit to being their disciple. I've not heard that in a long time from anybody, religious leader or otherwise, right? But it's ironic that he did say that at one point. At risk of being called a conspiracy theorist myself, you have to ask, who does this mindset serve? And if you think about it, if you've got people in government or people in power who desire a very conforming, passive, controllable population, they're going to do everything to manipulate that population to stop from thinking for themselves.
and they will do this with alcohol, with drugs, with legalizing drugs. They will do this with the pharmaceutical drugs that they give to children already, right? How many children are already medicated? They will do this with coffee, with junk food. They destroy your brain to the point where you literally can't think for yourself.
That's right. And it's trauma, massive trauma that they've started exposing us to, like global trauma, like what happened over the last 4 years. And people have not emerged from that trauma fully. They've not completely recovered. They're not healed. You know, if you're not healed from trauma, you're so much more vulnerable to being influenced by more trauma coming down the line at you. And I was also listening to a podcast. I think I sent you the link to it. It's a doctor by the name of Dr. Michael Nels, who discovered that in trauma, there's a part of the brain called the hippocampus, and there are brain cells within the hippocampus that are destroyed. And those brain cells are the ones that help us to think independently, because they can track our previous experiences and bring them up to help us remember what we learned that helped us survive in the past. Right? So he found through some research that when people have done full-scale, measurements of the size of the hippocampus in people's brains, that the size is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking over time. And that's scary, because that really is making us like leashed animals that cannot think for ourselves. We're just going to be led to the slaughter.
And then add to that the whole, cyborg thing and the AI that's taking over our brain.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It's really sad what's happening. And like, for example, Lucy, even in, like, when we're talking about gurus and stuff, like, we can also talk about health gurus or, fitness gurus or diet gurus. And people get they become so passionate, right? Sometimes I get some hate and, why you telling people, for example, not to drink alcohol, that's dangerous and you shouldn't tell people not to do that or whatever. But it's like, I'm not your guru. I'm saying one thing, it doesn't mean you have to, I'm on the internet, doesn't mean you have to follow everything I say. Like, use your own brain, people. I always try to tell people that just because I tell you eat like this, or I tell people in general, this is how I eat, doesn't mean you have to eat like that. Doesn't mean you have to follow exactly what I do. Like, you can take a little bit of information from me. If it works for you, use it. Take another piece from someone else. If it works for you, use it. Don't follow one person, and because they eat like that, you have to eat like that, or because they exercise like that, you have to exercise like that. But people are the same way with all of these kinds of things, right? With everything
Right.
else, it's like, okay, I'm following this person, so I have to do exactly what she's doing. But it's not like that. Don't follow what I'm doing, and don't follow what that other guy's doing. Find your own way.
Yeah.
And
That's a really good point. It's a really good point, because you're talking about the reverse effect, which is that if you've got somebody who really is into their guru or their ideology, whatever they're into, and that is the be all end all of their lives, if you come along and offer a different point of view, you become the enemy. You're the anti-guru, right?
yeah, yes.
And you are threatening their very existence by even suggesting that they might want to think for themselves, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I say eat steak and all the vegans come and attack me, right? But I mean,
Sure,
if you
sure.
enjoy your vegan lifestyle, enjoy it. Don't
Mhm.
come and hate on me because I'm not part of your tribe or
Absolutely
whatever, or your cult or whatever. I mean, so
right.
it works the same way with everything. And people really need to go back and start experimenting, and everyone's looking for that savior, like same thing
Yeah.
with like Q and Trump. I don't want to get into politics or any of that, but I mean, people actually think that the white hats are coming to save us, and they are
Mhm.
arresting all the bad people, and everyone's been switched out already. And you know what that's doing is it's making you complacent, because you don't need
That's
to do
exactly right.
anything, because it's all, already Hillary's been arrested, and this person, all this, and they drained the swamp, and everything's, and all the children have been rescued, and BS. Like, who actually believes that? But people do believe that. And because of
They
that,
absolutely.
they can sit back and, okay, my guru is taking care of everything, all is well, and I don't actually need to do anything. So it's a real psychological mind F, right? If you think
Right,
about
it
what they're
is. It
doing
is
to
a
us.
psyop. It is a psyop. You're absolutely right. Because again, whose interests does that serve? The stories of saviors, as you say, keep people complacent so they don't think for themselves, they don't question. They're just sitting in their houses waiting for the white hats to come and
Watching
take them out of
Netflix,
nowhere.
eating
Yes.
Doritos, watching Netflix, and
Right, right,
everything's
right.
being taken care of. But it's not.
That's right.
Lucille,
That's right.
what would you say is like the difference between like a cult, like a real proper cult, and like a spiritual group? Like, how would you know the difference between the two if you would come across something like this?
Oh, yes. Well, I have to remember I researched cults quite some time ago, and they differ. See, you can be in any part of a group and feel a little bit like you're losing some of your autonomy. Okay, that can happen in any group, even
Yeah,
one that is not a cult, because of the need for people to belong somewhere. So they're going to get into things like people pleasing and going along with the group mentality and all of
yeah.
that, which is not exactly a cult. A cult is really designed to completely enslave that person so they are totally and completely influenced by what the leader is trying to get them to do. So it would involve, for example, things like isolating them from their regular lives. It would require things like confusion on a massive level. So not just mental confusion, but some physical confusion or physical dysregulation, where you are not fed properly. Maybe you go through periods of starvation. Maybe you're given drugs. You have no control really over your bodily functions anymore. It usually involves repeated messaging.
Mhm.
And often that messaging is really beautiful. It can be, oh, we love you here. You are one of us. We will always support you, and on it goes. So it's really playing to those people who have grown up very insecure, never feeling they belonged anywhere. So it
Yeah.
feeds their ego and kind of seduces them into giving their loyalty to the group. And they're often given tests where they're told to do something humiliating, or just to go out on the street and beg for money or things like that. And that ironically makes people's loyalty to the group even stronger. So the cult is very, very different from just any regular group where somebody has a purpose. People are joined together for some purpose, like fundraising for a hospital, whatever. So a cult is very, very strategic in how they break down a person's defenses.
And it's normally it's one leader that is in charge.
Usually one leader, and there's a hierarchy, and there's always that sense of being special if somebody in the hierarchy gives you favor, or the leader gives you some kind of favor, So it's pretty ugly. It can be very effective, especially for people who are really emotionally vulnerable.
And a lot of people are lost, they don't have a strong sense of family or friendships or anything, and people are lost and they're looking to belong to somewhere, to someone, right? Exactly. So I think that's why these things can be very attractive to someone like that, to a lost soul. But then how do we find our way back and learn, like, how can we differentiate between who we should follow and who we shouldn't? And how do we find our own truth and trust that we are our own gurus in the end?
Sometimes that comes from having a hard fall with a guru, where, as we said earlier, you just are betrayed. They've damaged you so much that you can't come back to it wakes you up to how destructive it is, and then you have to reclaim your life and start really thinking. Sometimes it happens because people in the cult see, or people in the group see, that other people are being abused or taken advantage of, and they start to wake up. And they start to, oh my God, my friend just got sexually abused by the guru. Oh my God, what's happening, right? And it can be just being exposed to other opinions, being exposed to other people's points of view, if they're not completely taken in by the cult yet. There's a certain period of time where they're kind of like they're on the fence, they're not quite sure, and then they get exposed to somebody else who starts questioning, or maybe somebody from the group who's left it, who gives them a different understanding of what's really going on. But one way or another, unfortunately, it usually involves pain, some kind of emotional pain or some kind of whatever pain, to snap people out of it. I think for the rest of us who are, maybe we've never had a cult experience, although probably a lot of us have had it with even knowing. I always thought that medical school was a bit of a cult. But anyway, that's another story. For the rest of us, it's about, being in that growth mindset where you're always trying to go to the next level of your development, where you're going to that level of tuning into yourself, following your intuition, developing a stronger connection with your intuition, having an aha moment, like, my client who saw the torture porn and had to draw those horrible pictures, where you develop that sense of, something inside of me is telling me this is so wrong. Wave the red flag, Lynn. Something is so wrong, and I am going to listen. Somehow that can happen to people. And then they start really looking at everything very objectively. And I'm sure you've had that experience where you saw things one way, and then you started realizing, I don't think that's really what's going on. And then you kind of back up and you're looking at everything objectively. You're not drawn in. And that's the place where you're most powerful, is when you look at everything through a very objective lens. And you're not sucked in by it. You question everything. My hairdresser and I, we're both kind of on the same page, and we were having this discussion about what's going on in the world, and people are wanting to vote for this guy, and other people are very much on board with this war, or who's la la la.
Yeah.
And we're both in the position of saying, I don't know. That's our mantra. I don't know. I don't know where this, and I'm okay hanging out in I don't know. I don't need certainty. I don't need false reassurances.
You don't need to take sides, because taking sides ultimately just leads to, conflicts with the people around you.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all designed. I mean, if people, once they realize that politics, religion, wars, everything is designed to separate us, to divide us, everything, all the agendas that are going on right now, everything is about dividing us and separating us, so that we are so much easier to control. Because ultimately, if we all woke up at the same time, we are much more powerful and much more numerous than they are, wherever they are. And, they don't want that. And as long as we're at each other's throats, fighting for our survival, no one's going to rebel against the system. And it just works out perfectly like this. So the biggest flex that you can do really is stand on your own. And, like you said, when it comes to politics, I don't know, don't take sides. They give you two options, and they're both the same, they're two wings of the same bird, always, right? They just want to give you the illusion of a choice. That's all it is. And same with religion, religious cults and religions and spiritual leaders and food gurus and everyone out there. It's all about wanting to control you and to divide us. So really, the best thing that you can do is to, have faith in yourself, and to believe in yourself, and believe that you have this innate wisdom, that you know inside what's right. I mean, if you really turn inside, you feel it, what's right and what's wrong. And when you're making the wrong choice, your body's screaming and telling you, don't do it. Right? Have you had that, Lucille?
Yes, absolutely.
It's like every bone in your body saying, no, don't. But you do it anyway, because that's what you're supposed to do, or that's what somebody told you to do. But how, with the crazy world right now, it's more important than ever to take charge and to take control of our own thoughts, because I'm pretty sure they're putting thoughts into our minds as well. Did you see the new patent now they have for the Apple earbuds that it can actually read your mind? It's a patent. It'll be reading your mind, taking your blood pressure, taking all kinds of health readings and everything through your ear.
I think I did see a video on that.
That's pretty scary. And and we're consenting to that. And we're voluntarily taking part in this and sticking this crap in our ears. And I'm not, but people are. And so, I mean, we are just giving over control to everyone else, and it's really, really sad.
A big part of this is the big lie that we've been fed since we were very young, that human beings are ineffective, flawed, unethical,
born into sin.
That's a big one. Yes, into
going
sin.
To hell, like you mentioned.
Going to hell, and we're always having to prove that we're good, and we're always having to do better. So it really sets us up to believe that we can't survive without the big authority figures, or we cannot survive without AI or becoming fused with AI. AI is the next big savior, right?
Yeah.
It's going to make us superhuman. But really, truthfully, we have far more power. As you said, we have far more power than they will ever have.
Yeah.
And they know that. And if we wake up to that power within us, then they're toast.
They're done. They're powerless. Absolutely powerless. Absolutely powerless.
Right.
So I think hopefully what we can get across in this episode is, maybe even if it's just one person that, like Andrea said in the previous episode that we did, is if just one person is listening to this and this resonates with you.
Yes.
And you realize that you have the power and you are in charge, and nobody is coming to save you.
Absolutely. It puts you in a tremendous amount of power. And For those of us who are more spiritually inclined, you then ally with the real power, which is the divine.
Yeah.
Which does not in any way expect us to conform. It does not do anything but send us love.
Yeah.
And support us in doing what we were meant to do here.
Yeah.
So that brings us to, I think, the things that are key for us to develop our power, which is number one, know that you have a purpose here, far bigger than the day-to-day survival that you're going through. Know you have a purpose. Engage in something creative, which is going to develop your creativity, which is going to start showing you how powerful you can be as a creator of your own life.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if you make mud pies to start out with. Whatever you do,
Start a podcast.
Start a podcast. Jeez, yes, I can highly recommend that. Yeah. So and feel like you're contributing something, even if you don't know what your purpose is yet, to feel like you are contributing something of value to somebody's life out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap up this episode. Hopefully we shared some words of wisdom with you guys. At least made you guys think, don't listen to us. Don't follow us. Follow us, like follow us, but don't follow what we're saying. Listen to what we're saying, and then, use your own judgment, use your own mind. Ultimately, guys, what we're here for is to make you think so that you come to your own conclusion and that you make your own decisions. That's the most important thing. Dr. Lucia, thank you for another great episode.
And to you, Lynn, and we thank all of you who stuck it through to the end here. Please leave a like or comment and share and subscribe. We want this podcast to keep thriving and to go out to help as many people as possible. And we thank each and every one of you for being part of our audience. So we will be seeing you in the next episode. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Please be aware that Lynn and I are here to provide insights, advice, stories that are for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of our content should be considered to be personal, medical, or mental health therapy. If you are experiencing a mental health or physical health challenge, please consult the appropriate healthcare specialist. We are here to provide the best possible content in an atmosphere of positive conversation and personal growth.